Hello, Hornets. How are we? Welcome along to WD18, the Watford fan channel. I said, how are we? I mean, you're probably on the beach, like probably the Watford squad now, because the season's pretty much over, isn't it? It did finish at Ashton Gate, Bristol City 2, Watford 1. My name is Jacob Culshaw. We're back. It feels like a little bit of a while since I've been on a video. And I must say, before I introduce my partner in crime, my voice is very, very dodgy at the minute. Not for a particular reason, but a change in temperatures. I'm sounding a little bit like Sean Dyche because I've got a bit of a cold. So apologies. I've got a peppermint tea. I've had green tea galore today. But a man who's also not been feeling 100% is Sam Ucko, who's on the show today. Sam, what do you put it down to? Because something's going around in there.
Yeah, you're spot on. It's the change of weather, change of seasons. I always have it in terms of often I get this sort of ill, like coldy and a bit of a sore throat both times that the clocks change. So I sort of put it down to that as it's a bit expected. But also, I am 3 weeks out from the London Marathon, and I do find that particularly when I get onto my longer runs, the immune system does drop a bit as well, as my body is just knackered. So,
Sam, where can people donate to your marathon page?
There is a link up on my Instagram now, so make sure to check that out. And I'll also I'll put a tweet out this week as well. But yeah, really, really important cause. Very close to my local community here, and yeah, I'll share a link on Twitter this week for people to have a look at as well.
Top man, you're making me feel tired just thinking about doing a 5K, let alone a marathon. But thanks so much to everyone who's watching live. If you're listening to this back, if you wouldn't mind dropping us a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple, if you enjoy, of course. If you don't enjoy, don't bother. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, drop us a like, subscribe, comment down below your thoughts. If you're in the live chat, any thoughts about Watford yesterday, but also across the season as a whole, because there are 6 games left of this championship season. Watford's with a disappointing result. And I'd say disappointing performance, Sam. I wasn't there yesterday. I watched it back. Sam was at the game, and we'll get into it. But I think there's probably a conversation to be had about this season as a whole now and how we use the back end of this season, because Watford aren't going up. They're not going down. It's a real opportunity, I believe, to see this Watford squad and plan for next season and put us in a good position going into pre-season, which is mad to say considering it is the 6th of April, but it has just come around pretty quickly. But thanks so much to everyone who's watching live. A bit of housekeeping before we get into things. Mental Health World Cup, we're 5 weeks out from that one, the 10th of May, Saturday at the Vicarage Road. If you want to join us on the day, if you're not playing and would like to join us, there are tickets in the description below to come and watch and come and get involved. Of course, if you want to donate to any of the teams, the links are below as well. Sam, anything else I've missed on that front? I think it's, and obviously £1 for every goal Watford scored. Mamadou Doumbia's first goal for Watford. Make sure you do drop us a quid if you fancy it. Sam, anything else to mention?
I'm trying to think if there is anything else you've missed. I think you smashed it, mate. I mean, Watford are at home next, and well, I might not have time, but I'm going to try and get down to the Mad Squirrel beforehand. Always a good atmosphere there, close to Vicarage Road, nice and easy to get down to, and also limited edition beer has now been released for the Mental Health World Cup as well, where I believe is it £1 of all sales of the can kickoff, I think it's called. Will be going to the 5 charities that we are raising money for. So a great initiative, and head over to our socials to find out more. And
there you go. There it is in all its glory. Brew for the Mental Health World Cup in partnership with the Mental Health World Cup, Mad Squirrel, and ourselves at WD18, the kickoff. And as Sam said, £1 we donate to the following charities that are involved in the tournament as well. So if you want to get involved there, and obviously 18 over does apply here. Drink responsibly. Okay, Sam, let's do you know what, Sam? I'm going to ask you straight away about the title, because we had a few people messaging us about, are Watford underachieving this season? There was a bit of a narrative and a conversation to be had online yesterday about whether Watford are. Now, I think personally, Sam, this is down to the fact that Watford had a really good start of the season. Expectations went quite high, me included. I started to think we were probably above our stations. And I always think the season does work out itself in the end. You end up in a fair point. And Watford's season has just kind of been like a little bit of a peak, but it's just sort of petered out. So do you think that Watford are underachieving, or are Watford overachieving, or are we neither? What do you reckon?
Well, I'll just start off by saying, when you started that question and said, let's talk about the title, I thought, my word, what's Jacob been watching recently? If he thinks Watford near the top of the table. God, saying that, though, the automatic race for promotion in the Championship is wide open now as well. And should be an exciting end to the season in the Championship. Because I did think generally it looked like it was petering out a bit, but top 6, automatics and relegation are all still open. So, yeah, I'll be looking forward to watching on from that point of view. But in terms of Watford season, you're right, it has petered out over the last few weeks, and it definitely does lead to the question, have Watford... I mean, people are frustrated with Cleverley, and I think it's, online at least. I'll talk a bit later about the away end yesterday generally, but I think Cleverley, to an extent, is a victim of his own success. We were really, really good in that first half of the season. I think I've tried to pinpoint exactly where things have started to potentially change a bit. And I think it's probably ever since that Portsmouth game on Boxing Day, things have just taken a little bit of a turn. Obviously, we have had some positive results since then away at Derby, but there was obviously the whole Cleverley potentially getting sacked fiasco, a shambles. Well, I say shambles, a January transfer window where we needed to sign more players than we actually did. And overall, it's just not exactly gone potentially where the season could go. That being said, at the start of the season, I came on here and a lot of other Watford fans said I thought we'd be down there in a relegation battle. And I thought that there was a serious chance that Watford could be playing League One football next season. And the fact that we've avoided that comfortably, I'd say, is a huge testament to Tom Cleverley, because it's his first job still. It's his first proper season in charge, having worked in his first pre-season in a very, very difficult background at a club notoriously difficult to work at. So many managers have come in and failed. The fact Tom Cleverley's even got us to April and we're saying our season's done and that we're out the playoff picture now is a huge, huge testament to the job that he's done. So in that respect, I don't think Watford are underachieving. I think this season we've overachieved. That being said, it is disappointing the way that it has petered out, particularly those last few results, the Plymouth game, the Oxford game, the defending yesterday. I think we're potentially going to look back at this season and almost think what might have been.
Interesting one. Let us know your thoughts on it, because I look at sort of Watford statistically. Our home record's been great this season overall. 20 games played, 36 points on the board. Away form, 20 games played, 17 points on the board. Very mid-table in terms of our offensive and defensive stats. But actually, you then look at the table with 10th in the league. Millwall have just overtaken us in the table as well. I'm really torn on this, because I think there's probably a conversation to be had about Cleverley yesterday and some of his decision making and some of his comments after the game. But I think I look at our squad on paper, Sam, and we said at the start of the season, this is a squad that lacks quite a bit of depth, I think. If you talked about our best team with every single player fit, it's a pretty decent Championship team, I'd say. The problem is that we know how many games there are. We know the fixture congestion. We know the schedule. And you just cannot play that starting 11 every week, because you have a situation like Baah yesterday, who is in our best starting 11, but he can't keep himself fit. That was his first start yesterday since January. When you look at our attackers this season, he's been our best attacker. So I think Cleverley, as you said, has been a victim of his own success. The start, I think, it sort of raised expectations, probably to his detriment, because I think we then started to believe that maybe we were a better team than we actually are. I'm interested to see how these next 6 games go, because Watford could quite easily, I know we're petering out, when you look at, as you said, Sam, the form of the last how many games. After that Portsmouth game on Boxing Day, Watford have only won 4 games. Derby away, Middlesbrough away, Luton at home and Swansea at home. And if we're being totally honest there, Derby, Luton and Swansea are 3 teams we should be beating. Middlesbrough was the one that was more of a surprise, I think. Derby was a surprise because it was our poor away form. And then you look at some of the other games in quite a poor Championship. Watford haven't really managed to be consistent in the second half of the season. I do put that down to the lack of squad depth. And I do think that January transfer window, whilst Selvik and Abankwah were upgrades, it was just one of those windows where it needed to do a lot more in order for Watford to kick on, unfortunately. It filled a gap, right, in terms of Selvik and Abankwah. I know Abankwah made a mistake yesterday. You could argue Selvik could have done better with a goal. But like on the whole, those 2 guys are coming in and been great for us, right? And there's we're going to have mistakes in them, especially with a young player. But I just think the transfer window, not only in the summer but January, has kind of meant there's a ceiling on this Watford team for me. We've won 1 from 18, Sam. Won 4 from 18 since Portsmouth.
No, exactly, and that's the argument that I've seen some people using online. And And everyone's entitled to their opinion. I just think there is perspective needed. You mentioned yesterday, for example, Cleverley, I think, got yesterday wrong, and we'll speak about why in a bit. But I am willing to accept that as a young manager who I think has worked absolute wonders this season in the context of what he's working with and the squad that's been assembled. My slight worry, Jacob, as you've said, with that form there, is that, I mean, I've got two slight worries with it. Number one, with this ownership, I don't think Tom Cleverley's job is safe at all at the moment, to be honest with you, in terms of at the end of the season. If we don't pick up some sort of form in these last 6 games, don't think anyone would be really surprised if we got to the end of the season and Pozzo went time for a change next season. And the other thing is that I do worry about is that often you do see dips in form almost leak into the season after sometimes. I think we saw that with our FA Cup final season where we ended the season really poorly in those last 8-9 games and we got relegated the next year. So I think it's going to be really important to have a strong finish for this Watford team. But yeah, it's going to be important for Tom as well to pick up points in these last 6 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I look at, again, just going back to sort of the squad building, where I don't know how much influence Cleverley has over that. I'd actually love to know if he speaks on it. I know he's involved in the process of signings, but if I'm Cleverley now, between now and the end of the season, Sam, I'm looking at it going, we'll do keep, sell, or loan, but I'm working out who I want here next season. And I think you're right, Sam, in the sense that although Cleverley signed a 3-year contract, we've seen, I've seen more shocking things from Pozzo than him to leave. I hope he doesn't, of course. But if I'm him, I'm looking to plan for next season, and I'm sort of telling Nani, Duxbury, Pozzo, these are the players I want to keep. These are the players we need to get rid of. And I look at that starting 11 yesterday, Sam, and I do just ask myself the question, does he know his best team? I really don't think he does, because we've tweaked from a 3 at the back, Sam, to a 4, and he's clearly made it clear, Cleverley, clever, alliteration galore, that it was he prefers a 4. He was playing a 3 because he felt the squad was more suited to a 3. And I just wonder, where I look at the team yesterday, right? And let me just get it on screen just before you jump in, Sam, and let us know what you think of this. Selvik, Banker, and Ngakia. I mean, there's conversation to be had about sort of the right back spot. Pollock, one of the sort of back 2. The back 3 has become its own. Wiley's come into the team. The midfield loser, yes. Sissoko Kiembe, questions. Baah, Bayo, Vata. And Vata's only just started coming back into the team as well. Is it too harsh to say that he doesn't know his best team?
Well, I don't think Cleverley's played back-to-back games this season with the same team. And I think, to be honest with you, that I mean, we have been slightly unlucky in some ways that for a lot of the season, we've had certain players injured for large chunks. Kwadwo Baah's been out. We've had a lot of suspensions in there. Abankwa, Bayo being suspended as well. Argue amongst yourselves if that's a good thing or not. But I don't think he knows his best team. I think we have found a shape though, and that's a foundation to build on for now. It is, but definitely we haven't found our best team, partly because the quality isn't necessarily. I think we've got 5 or 6, maybe just 4 or 5 actually, dead certs in that team. Other than that, though, you can make an argument for any other players to come in and start, which in some ways it can be good because it provides competition. And on the other hand, though, it hasn't provided any sort of stability, particularly in the second half of the season for us.
No, agreed. And I think when you have a squad like Watford do, and this is not a disrespect to those guys, it's just plain and obvious in terms there is a lack of squad depth in certain positions. You kind of get away with it when momentum is so good at the start of the season because the vibes are good. But when you do have a natural dip in the season, we do have injuries, suspensions. That's when you find out the most about this squad. And I'm guilty of this, where I think Watford are on a great wave. They were on a great wave of form. There's a great vibe. There's a great atmosphere to the football club. But I think when you really find out a lot about these players and a lot about probably the squad as a whole and the material of it is when you are going midweek games away from home. And as Sam said, when you look at sort of the run we've had since that point, it probably has evened itself out from what is a strong start to the season. Sam, I got the lineup yesterday on screen. It was Selvik, Ngakia, Pollock, Abankwa, Wiley, Loser, Kiembe, Sissoko, Baah, Bayo, Vata. Cleverley said he thought that Watford came out the blocks really well, and it looked like it was only going to be one team that won. Is that the correct statement? Because it seemed like, and I'll get onto his comments, he suggested that the game changed when Baah went off. Do you think it's too easy to say that, or is that a fair summary?
It's definitely a fair summary. I think Watford looked really, really good in the first 10 minutes. Bristol City, I think, looked slightly actually surprised. Firstly, by the way that Watford came out of the blocks and looked really dangerous every time I thought we transitioned through the thirds really well in that first 10 minutes from the defensive area to the midfield to the attack. I actually think, not only was I surprised, I think Bristol City was slightly surprised to see Baah starting as well. And look, I'm not a physio. I haven't been in the physio room with Kwadwo Baah, but I was absolutely shocked to see him start yesterday. And it's proven to be the wrong decision. I think Cleverley is going to learn. I hope Cleverley learns from this, because to me, what it looks like, and this is what I mean by a young manager making mistakes. I think he's just seen that Baah is available. He played 30 minutes last week and has just almost jumped the gun a bit and thrown him straight in and almost, seen the light before his eyes and acted on it without necessarily thinking about. I'm not saying thinking, because it's, they would have had meetings and checking everything was okay and that sort of thing. It's just particularly with the way that Baah plays and how explosive he is. It was a huge risk and a baffling decision, I think, that I was shocked with. And immediately I said outside the ground, I had a feeling that something would go wrong with him starting the game. So, yeah, baffling. And what's even more baffling, Jacob, is his comments, Cleverley's comments, if you want to go on to that. Because as much as we've praised Clevs on air and still right behind him, obviously, I think yesterday he completely got it wrong.
Do you know what's really interesting, Sam? Because an article's just been released by Andrew French, who spoke to Cleverley after the game. I'll just get this up before I get onto his comments yesterday, Tom. The article reads that Baah was ready to go after strong rehab, says Tom Cleverley. Obviously, Baah limped off after 15 minutes, his first start since January 21st. And Cleverley was insistent it was not a risk to pick the forward. Cleverley said, no, not at all. I felt that he would improve physically from half an hour he got last week, and he looked good in that. He trained well all week, and playing in a game is just a completely different kettle of fish. There's no way we can simulate that situation, because nervous energy and explosive actions, along with competitiveness of it, means it's the acid test. But he was prepared as well as possibly he could have been before the game, and we were all comfortable with him starting. For me, Sam, look, again, hindsight's a wonderful thing. If he hadn't have started, Watford fans would have turned around and gone, where is Baah? He played 30 minutes last week. Why isn't he starting?
Oh, do you agree with that? I think a lot of people were actually more surprised to see him starting, to be honest. I think if he was on the bench, a lot of people would have gone, fair enough. Like, we've got three games this week.
True. I mean, the only thing I'd say, mate, is if we'd lost yesterday and Baah didn't start, people would have said, why didn't Baah start? So I think it's a double-edged sword in that respect. But I understand what you're saying in the sense that if Cleverley didn't start him and then after the game said, look, I wanted to give him another opportunity off the bench. We brought him on at half-time because he played 30 minutes last time. We're going to play him for 45 this time. Come Hull on Tuesday, we'll play him a full 90. I mean, he's just a bit of an anomaly, Baah, in the sense that his whole game relies on his explosiveness and his power and his directness and his dynamism and actually running at full speed, right? So his muscles are pretty much at full stretch all the time. I'm no physio. I'm not qualified really in this area at all. But it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that you've got a winger there who is literally probably making the most sprints of anyone on the pitch. And if you have an injury like he did, which is one of the biggest muscles, if not the biggest in your leg, I think, it's just repaired. He's come back. It's taken 2 months or whatever it is. And you chuck him in. And he's running, Sam, I mean, you saw it from the away end, twice in that first 15 minutes, one with the ball, one without. He's sprinting at full pelt. It's almost, I mean, the probability of what happened is pretty high, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got a question for you, Jacob, as well. Because it was interesting, like you say, in front of the away end, it was the second run. And straight away after he either had a cross or a shot, he looked up to the away end and signalled like this. He went like this, as if something, he felt a pop in there or something snapped in there, and straight away signalled to the bench to come off. So everyone knew from that moment that the Baah was done. Not in terms of, because for some players, right, you worry about their careers from an attitude perspective or them just purely not being good enough. this isn't the case with Baah at all. Like, we love watching him. With him, like, it's never an effort problem. He hasn't done anything wrong here necessarily. I think it's the way he's built. Do you worry about his career generally, that his ceiling is, because he's got a big ceiling, I think. Do you think he's going to be held back slightly by this injury? Because the way he plays and how explosive he is, like you say, running at full pelt, I'm not sure there's a quick fix for it, if you know what I mean.
No, I think it's a great point, Sam. I mean, not a great point in the sense it's not positive, but in terms of the fact that he's 21, Baah. He's probably played more football than he expected to this season. I think it's all surprised us how well he's done. I think Rio makes a fantastic point in the comment section. If we signed the winger in January, like Marshall Kwadwo, who was in the building, Baah wouldn't have had to be rushed in, which I think is a fair point. I'll get onto the comments about the game plan, but it just feels like with Baah that I'm worried for him, if I'm honest, because a reoccurrence of the same muscle injury, particularly a thigh injury, and the type of player he is and the style of play he is, he has to trust his body fully in order to play at the level he can do. So look, time will tell, Sam, and obviously it's hard to make a judgment now. But what I will say is that sort of injury, the sort of player Baah is, he has to be fully trusting when he goes out on the pitch that that isn't going to happen again. And you see it a lot with hamstring injuries, right, where players who have had it a long time in their career, they're not the same player. So if I'm Cleverley, Sam, I don't think we should see him before the end of the season, really.
No, spot on. I mean, Cleverley, I think, suffered from a similar injury. He said it himself, and he's admitted that. I mean, obviously, Clevs did a great job at Watford for so many years, across 2 spells at Everton, Villa, Man United. But from memory as well, there was always that feeling with Tom Cleverley. He never necessarily hit the heights that he could have done as a player. I think he said that himself, to be fair. And I think a large part of that was down to that same injury. So, yeah, hoping that it's not the same for Baah as well.
What changed, Sam, when he went off? Because obviously, Bristol City got 2 goals in the first half. The momentum shifted. But was it just simply Ince comes on, but was it that outball that Watford just didn't have without Baah on the pitch?
Yeah, I think it did look like the game plan was completely built around Baah. And when he went off, that didn't look like there was a plan B necessarily. Yesterday, again, I've said this so many times with these players, it wasn't a reflection of their attitude or effort or application. They did work really, really hard. I thought Rocco Vata had a brilliant game yesterday as well. Some lovely touches. Oh, my word, Jacob, you missed this from the away end and it wouldn't have made it onto the highlights, but the ball was fizzed into him. I think it was from like the outside of his boot, managed to nutmeg a player with his first touch, and thought Rocco was really good yesterday. Ince worked his socks off. I thought he did. I mean, he didn't see too much of the ball, but again, not for the want of trying. It was just 2 lapses of defensive concentration. Abankwah, as much as we've praised him, we know he let himself down against Oxford with that red card and came back into the side yesterday and probably should have done better with those 2 goals. And yeah, Vakoun, Bayo, I hate singling him out because I've said this before as well. I really don't like how Watford fans generally have been on his back recently. I hate that chant when Bayo scores were on the pitch, and I had a couple of people booing him yesterday in the away end. And yeah, of course, we're all for fun and games and football and banter and that sort of thing. But I think it's just very, very clear that his confidence is on the floor, and we could see that his lack of movement, his lack of runs, his head was down. And in that respect, again, I don't want to sound harsh, and I hate saying this, it felt like we were playing with 10 men at points with Bayo on the pitch. And we'll talk about Doumbia later, because that was probably the biggest positive yesterday. Immediately his movement for the goal was a lot better. So yeah, I just think on the whole, we just looked like we didn't have a plan B when Baah went off, and we just lacked any sort of imagination.
In terms of the 2 goals, Sam, we mentioned Abankwah. I think you just put it in Rose Eds, James. Sometimes it's got to be done. I think probably the message has been from the coaching staff, I'd imagine, at most opportunities, get the ball down, try and play, try and reset. But it was just that position where just put your foot through it and put it out for a throwing. And I know that sounds pretty old school, but at times you just have to do that, really. And it's led to a unnecessary goal. Don't get me wrong, though. I know Abankwah's been getting a little bit of attention for that goal. I did feel Watford had a couple of opportunities to get the ball away before it actually went in. I didn't think the reaction was great. The second one, Sam, did the ball go out of play?
I've seen. To be honest with you, I haven't watched the highlights back properly from the away end. It's difficult to see unless you see the full on angle, because there are so many different. I don't know if you remember years ago on, I think it was Monday Night Football, there was a goal that looked like it couldn't tell if it had gone out, and Gary Neville went and showed, like on the pitch, on pitch side, a ball can look like it was in or out at different angles, if you know what I mean.
That was the Spurs, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting clip, actually, because it just shows how different camera angles can show different things to you. I think regardless, though, again, going back to an old Sunday League cliche here, you got to play to the whistle. It looked like the players immediately were almost looking to the ref and completely lost concentration in that respect. And for that, it was really poor defending, really disappointing to see, because even at that point, we had opportunities to get the ball out of play or reset, and we just didn't do that at all. And for that, I think, again, this Watford team just need to learn from that and almost accept when things go against you in this league, particularly in the Championship. You just got to get on with it in some ways.
Because it was Wiley and Kiembe who sort of sprinted over as soon as the goal went in. I mean, Wiley was sort of throwing his hands about when it looked like the ball did go out. Look, that's one that you could, if it's in the Premier League, it gets looked at, but we can't do anything about that. Again, though, sloppy defending from Watford. Going to half-time, Sam, nothing really changed for the first 15 minutes of the second half. Well, I say it was quite a passive performance from what I saw from Watford, which to an extent I agree the game changed when Baah went off. I think naturally it's going to change when Baah went off. But again, it was similar patterns, Sam, and similar themes to what we've seen recently.
Yeah.
You know, it does feel like this Watford team just lacks a bit of conviction to what they do. It's a little bit going through the gears, a bit passive, a little bit slow. Sort of, we're kind of feeling our way into the game, and you're away from home at Bristol City, who are now and sixth in the league, right? And that was a really good opportunity. If we wanted to have a decent end to this season, you know, Bristol City were on 57 before today. We were on 53. We win that, we go up to 8th, you know, and then again, it's me being sucked into this narrative about the playoffs. But the point is, it just didn't feel like a performance where, from my perspective, Sam, we were looking to push it towards a goal or we were looking to get in the play. It just felt like we were going through the motions a bit.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I've noticed that body language generally in terms of going through the motions, almost feeling up games before clicking into gear. And sometimes it takes us going 1-0 down to really, really get into it, which is frustrating.
Why do you think that is on the goal? Sorry, because that has been the theme this season where Watford start to play when we're losing.
Yeah, I think there is an element, to be fair, as well, that if you remember earlier in the season, particularly in those first 10, 15 games, Watford were conceding goals in the first 5 minutes pretty much every single week, if you remember. I do wonder if there is an element of that almost protect what we have first before we go and attack games a bit more. And I wonder if that's almost seeping into it a bit. I just think having that lack of focal point up top is really, really impacting things at the moment. Bayo, like, to be honest with you, people saying why is Cleverley playing Bayo? I'm not sure what else he's meant to do. Because, I mean, we've seen him play Kiembe up front, which wasn't the most effective. Doumbia probably wasn't fully ready for 90 minutes yesterday. And it comes back again to, you know, people at the top of the club who didn't invest in January in a striker when we knew we clearly needed one. So I think, in that respect, it is. I just think yesterday, again, missed opportunity. No disrespect to Bristol City, because for them, I think that the performance was functional, and I really, really like Liam Manning. I think he's a brilliant manager. And regardless of whether they end up in the top 6, I think it's been a big season of progression for Bristol City compared to the previous few years. I didn't think they were at it yesterday compared to when I've watched them previously this season. Maybe they didn't need to be at it because Watford weren't knocking on the door. We were happy to have a lot of the ball, but we weren't doing much with it. So they didn't need to fully, you know, I don't want to say put 100% into the game. They didn't need to get out of second gear too often. And in that respect, I think it was a missed opportunity for Watford.
No, and just to back that up, Sam, in terms of sort of what you said there, I mean, that's reflected in the stats as well. If I just zoom in on the left-hand side, Watford had more possession away from home at 56%. But look at that XG.
Yeah.
And that is so incredibly low. And is it, you know, there's a conversation to be had, Sam, about whether it's solely on Bayo or whether it's the supply to him, right? Now, I personally think it is a lot down to the striker we have. Now, I'm not saying that our final ball couldn't be better. It definitely could be. But when you're not in the game and when you're not really involved, you're kind of looking at your striker thinking, you need to make something happen. Like, that is your job. Especially if you're playing in the 4-3-3 that like you are. You need to bring your two wingers into play. Harder with Ince because he doesn't really run beyond the last man. But Vata will always do that. And Vata was drifting inside a little bit more. I noticed yesterday to almost support Bayo in the first half anyway. But, I mean, that is so low.
Yeah.
0.28. And just sort of to segue, Sam, onto Bayo, because I'm the same as you. I don't like picking out a certain player. But look, he's been in the headlines this week. It was an exclusive from Andrew French, which said Watford denied plans made for Bayo to return this season. Now, there was a couple of sources in Italy confirming that Bayo was on his way back to Udinese. Obviously, there was a deal agreed between the two clubs. It's like that Spider-Man meme, isn't it, where they're pointing at each other when that all went through. And he moved to Udinese, and he's on loan at Watford this season. Obviously, his second season here at the club. He's played 100 games for Watford, Bayo. Second season or third season? Third season, sorry.
Year 3 now. This is
third season, right? But his second season since signing from Udinese. 100 games for Watford. 2 questions, Sam. Is it down to the supply or is it down to Bayo? And number 2, do you think he'll be here next season?
I mean, I wouldn't rule out him being here next season, to be honest with you. I don't think if I was Vakoun Bayo, I'd want to come back necessarily. I think he knows as well that the supporter. You can see yesterday, he was almost playing off the crowd as well in that respect. I think he just almost knows that it's done between him and Watford at the moment. I think it's a bit of both between Bayo and in terms of whether it's him or it's the supply, because I think at the moment, as I think Laura's pointed out here in the comments, I think there's a lack of trust between the players and Bayo. I think Baah, for example, yesterday decided when he was on decided to take a shot rather than cross it. There was another moment as well where the ball was I think flashed across and Bayo was nowhere to be seen. So yeah, I think Bayo, yeah, he's frustrating, and I don't think he's necessarily getting service because there's a lack of trust there between him and the other players. But that being said, I think you used the words before, Jacob, cutting edge. We're just lacking any real cutting edge in the final third. That final ball isn't great. I think, for example, that's an area of Rocco Vata's game that he can work on for next season. I think he's brilliant at the ball, brilliant at bringing the ball forward, but can he just have that final ball, that killer pass, which I think we potentially would see if there was a better striker in there as well. So, yeah, I think it's a bit of both. And
we didn't mention actually, but obviously Chatford pulled out due to a toe issue that he's been suffering over recent weeks. Mark says, lately our build-up play has been so slow, similar to Ishmael Bull from last season, which is an interesting comment on that. But I guess the difference is, Sam, and it is easy to say, sorry, it is easy to say.
Pardon, Jacob.
I know. It's really, really bad, isn't it? I honestly sound like a sort of Sean Dyche tribute act who's like, you know, I'm available for cameo. Do you know what I mean? You can probably get like 50 quid out of clips for this. But I look at Doumbia and the impact he has had, right? And the biggest one for me, Sam, the biggest one, not takeaway yesterday, was actually at Sunderland. Right, the difference Doumbia made leading that line away from home, winning fouls, relieving pressure, winning the penalty, moving off the Sunderland centre-backs. It was everything we wanted to see from Bayo. Yeah. And it's quite easy to say because it is just quite easy to say, really, because of the amount of involvement he's having in games when he comes on, Sam. But there's like a real infectious energy, enthusiasm about Doumbia, which I really like. And he got his first goal for Watford yesterday. A really good finish, by the way. Lovely ball from Loser. For me, what was so underrated about that goal was the touch from Doumbia, because the ball's played into him at quite a bit of pace. The touch into space and then his shot away. It's a really good goal from Doumbia. But is it just too easy to say Dumbia's just showing what we want to see from Bayo in the cameos that we're seeing from him at the minute?
I think so, yeah. Particularly in terms of the runs. I mean, what I was most impressed with actually with the goal, you mentioned the touch, which was great. I was actually really impressed with the original positioning in terms of the way he was showing for the ball and in a central area. I felt at times Bayo just tended to almost hide away and drift between fullbacks and centre backs rather than almost what we saw from Doumbia, where he was making himself a bit more available, which I thought was really impressive. I mean, I think back to the thing that my moment so far with Doumbia that I've loved was the Luton game where he won the penalty and just having that ambition to chase after the ball, get his toe to it, and got taken out by the goalkeeper and won a penalty for it. We just wouldn't necessarily see that from Bayo at the moment because I think his confidence is shot. I'll keep saying that. But yeah, I think from now on, as long as he's fully fit, and I think hopefully Cleverley learns from the Baah situation and doesn't throw Doumbia straight in there on Tuesday night, as much as we'd all love him to. I think it probably will be Bayo again on Tuesday night. I think Doumbia is a really exciting thing for us to look forward to next season because for the first 6 months English football, he only came in the team in January. He's getting better by the game. And I think the word I'd use for him as well is mature for an 18, 19-year-old. He's playing really maturely, I think.
No, agreed. It's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because the Watford sort of squad at the minute is clients from a certain agent, sort of over-the-hill footballers, and then the odd rough diamonds. And I think it was Tom Bodell who described it from the Watford Buzz podcast yesterday. And I thought that was a really good way of sort of summing this Watford team up. And then the loan from Udinese, it's sort of those four types of players. And sometimes with the clients of the unnamed agent, you do get like a loser who has been a brilliant signing. But then in the same respect, you'll have a Bayo who hasn't lived up to the heights. And it's just one of those where it's very hit and miss. It just feels like, Sam, that the squad just needs a real revamp in the summer. The question is, though, I guess, is whether we'll see that. And we didn't see it last season. I do worry, Sam, that we kind of got away with it this season, really, if we're honest. Like, and this is not me being reactionary to yesterday, but if I look at since January, right, we had a great start to the season. It's been poor for the last 18 games. It's evened itself out over the season, but it is a pretty poor championship this season, if we're honest. If we're really brutally honest about it, the quality of the league is poor, and there's some teams higher up in the league who probably shouldn't be. And I just worry next season, it looks like quite an open field. But if we don't get the transfer window right, but that feels like, I feel like a broken book, because I said it last summer as well, that we're not going to be able to get away with it.
Yeah, it's going to be a really open championship next season, I think, because it looks like, again, for the second year running, the 3 teams who come up will be coming back down. Southampton's relegation confirmed again. I don't think there'll be many takers for their players, and they've got a team that's really nicely assembled. They'll lose Tyler Dibbling, but I'm not too sure. Aaron Ramsdale will probably leave as well. But in terms of the core of that team, I think they've got a really good setup for the championship, and they'll be up there again, as will Ipswich, as will Leicester City as well. On top of that as well, you're going to have potentially Leeds could still be in there as well. I don't think Leeds will go up, to be honest with you. And then you've also got a bit of a rarity as well, that 2 teams who come up from League One, you'd imagine Birmingham and Wrexham are going to chuck the money at it as well next year, and they could be up there. So the quality of the league overall next year is going to really, really improve. And, you know, let's not lie as well, as much as I hate to say it, if Luton do stay up, they're not going to let this season happen again. They'll improve. If Cardiff stay up, Cardiff potentially will improve as well, as will Hull. So yeah, and I worry because we mentioned in terms of a rebuild, and I did feel like that almost the first bricks were put in place for a rebuild over the 2 transfer windows this summer. The issue is, I feel like all those good bits of the rebuild we could be losing in the summer in terms of, is the goalkeeper, is Selvik tied down to a contract here?
Selvik's permanent. A bank was loan.
A bank was a loan.
I mean, if I was to hazard a guess, Sam, I think we'll do keep Sell alone. But I think Wiley will be here again next season. That's my early hot take.
Yeah.
I think Loser will go. Chatford, that's going to go. Baah's now going to stay, without a doubt.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Baah would have gone, but I think the injury record would have killed him. But we're going to lose at least 3 or 4 really important players to us. I think a bank will probably stay at Udinese. We're going to lose Luz. We're going to lose Georgie, and potentially a couple of others in there as well. So it almost feels like, I don't want to sound all doom and gloom because it has been a good season, I think, and we'll go a bit more in depth in the summer. But yeah, I just think potential early cracks are being shown, and that's not Clev's fault, but it's just on the people at the top of the club.
Is that what you want to see from now to the end of the season, Sam?
Yeah.
Not reset, but a sort of acknowledgement. This is where we are. Let's now look ahead to next season or prep for next season.
Yeah, I think so. Again, but it's difficult to do that because we don't know who's going to be here necessarily. I think if I'm looking at a minimum expectation for the next for the rest of the season, I'd want to get at least 4 points just to break last season's points total. We're 3 points off at the moment. If we get 4 points, I think that will show progression. I mean, our league position will be better as well, our points total. So I think that's what I want from the last few games. And on top of that, enjoying our last few games of watching Georgie at Vicarage Road, because we take these players for granted. I think João Pedro's, Charlison's, etc., until they actually leave and go on to better things.
Hull at home, West Brom away, Burnley at home, Portsmouth away, Blackburn away, and Sheffield Wednesday at home. Baah missing that Portsmouth game, which would have been very tasty indeed, I think. Another one, Sam's best mate, Ince, will be here next season, which is would be another one. Rio said, someone said on Twitter, according to Tuta Udinese, Selvik will only stay here if Udinese sign another keeper. Well, that's interesting, but from what I read, he signed a permanent deal, so I don't know. I mean, obviously, with Watford and Udinese, it can just change like that. I think a Bankwa, it was going to... I really, really hope that we can tie him down, but we'll save this for another video. Sam, I wanted to read some of the comments to just get your reaction to some of these. And Ian says, at the end of the day, football's all about enjoyment. Have we enjoyed the season? On the whole, Sam, we have enjoyed the season. I love it. We're doing like an end of season review.
It does. Yeah, it does feel like an end of season review. And I think that's quite apt, actually, because I think yesterday almost was the closure of this season, wasn't it? I think that's it for our playoff hopes, isn't it? If we won yesterday, it kept them alive just. But I think particularly not picking up 6 points against Oxford and Plymouth killed it as well. I have enjoyed this season, and I think that's also because I've looked back at previous teams, and the one that stuck out to me, not in terms of quality, but the team 2 years ago under Bilic, Chris Wilder, and Rob Edwards is the worst Watford team I've seen in my lifetime. Not necessarily in terms of quality, but in terms of players downing tools. The attitude of that squad was horrific. All round, it was toxic. We were terrible that season. I hardly enjoyed any games, and this season, the application, the effort, the desire has been there. I just think what's been sold short is the quality of the players we have at our disposal as well as the depth, which we'll talk about a lot more at the end of the season in terms of where that leaves us going into 2025, 2026. But I definitely enjoyed this season. Would you say you have, Jacob?
Yeah, I would say overall. I mean, that first half of the season is one of the most enjoyable I've had in a long time, I think. Obviously, we're winning a lot of games, but I thought the late goals, the drama, the entertainment factor. I mean, Vicarage Road has been a real joy to go to this season. And Cleverley made that a priority right at the start. He said we were really poor last season at home. And it does make a massive difference, right? Because, like, take Portsmouth this season, for example, Sam. At home, they've been brilliant. Away, they're the second worst in the league. So you're kind of like, their fans are quite not content. Obviously, they want the away forms to be a lot better, but they've seen so many good wins. Well, I say so many, but they've seen quite a few good wins at Fratton Park this season. That first season back, that must have been a priority, right? So Watford had really good momentum in that first half. And I really enjoyed it for one. What I'm really interested to see is, will there be change over the summer? But I'd be surprised. And one of the comments from Ian, good to see you, Ian, one of our moderators. To be honest, I think I'll be glad when this season is over. Inept first halves and lack of firepower, etc. Will be interesting to see how far and deep the clear out of Deadwood is and how we rebuild. Ian says the rebuild may have started with rumours. Jonathan Bond, Sam, maybe heading back to the USA?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, to be honest with you. He wasn't actually in the matchday squad completely yesterday. One of the younger goalkeepers was often, you have the goalkeeper, then you have the one on the bench, and then the third one who comes along just in case and for the warm-ups. And yeah, Bondy wasn't involved there. So it wouldn't shock me if he's off in the summer.
on yesterday. Steve Brown says, where I was sat for the second goal meant I was looking directly down the touchline. And although it was close, I don't think that the whole of the ball was out of play. Evening, Jack. Good to see you. How was Spain, Jacob? Bet you're gutted you missed the 0-0 with Plymouth. Do you know what?
That was Culshaw as well.
Culshaw, wow. I've completely forgot about that. Time is flying at the minute. It genuinely is. Culshaw, he didn't want to speak much English, which I obviously do loads of prep for these interviews, and I know he can speak a bit of English because obviously he was at Columbus Crew for a couple of seasons, but obviously he's moved back to Spain now, and that's his mother tongue. But I mentioned to him Arsenal, Southampton, Aston Villa, and he gave me a big smile and said, and sort of just smiled. And we had a very brief conversation about it, but it wasn't anything major. One of the questions we did ask him was, who's better, Ronaldo's overhead kick versus Juventus or Culshaw versus Arsenal? So I'll leave that to you, Sam. Who was better?
Oh, definitely Culshaw's. God, that game, by the way, that came up on my Twitter feed the other day. That was, I think we lost 3-2, 4-2 to Arsenal at home. Yeah. Every single goal in that game was an absolute banger. I don't remember Arsenal scored like 4 worldies in that game as well. And I think Musa scored for us as well. A really well worked goal. But yeah, it was an odd season, that one. But I mean, yeah, it brings it back though. Again, why I've enjoyed this season, because again, that was another squad where I know we were in the Premier League and we were pretty much down after week 3 of the season. But yeah, just this squad's a lot more likeable, and in that respect, I've enjoyed it.
No, agreed. And this is a great comment from Charlotte. Disappointed the season is over, but let's keep things in perspective. I wasn't particularly optimistic at the start of the season. Completely agree. There's been some highs and lows, but feels like we've made progress. Agreed. And now that's why it makes it really important in the summer. Mark says, in my opinion, our best starting 11 is definitely top 6 material. Unfortunately, we suffered from too many injuries affecting our already thin squad. Dele Bashiru has gone downhill. Chatford continues to disappoint with his final ball finishing. Bayo has been atrocious. Brad says, do you see Cleverley in charge next season? Richard says, I think the problem is we don't know our best 11. Cleverley hasn't played the same team in successive games, as Sam said, once this season. Rio says, Roy Hodgson could be our manager, and I still wouldn't blame him. It's Gino's fault. Cleverley didn't get the left back he wanted. Experienced championship player, or the winger, or the striker that he wanted. It's a very good point. I think that's pretty much it. Adam says, constantly changing the starting 11 every game, but can't really help it with injury suspensions. You look at other sides and you know who's going to play every week, whereas with us, I struggle. Very, very good point. And Toby says, I'd move loser forward, put Dom Dele Bashiru in the holding role. Sam, looking ahead to Tuesday, Hull City come to Vicarage Road. Are we going to get mauled by the Tigers?
Well, it's sort of a win-win, actually, I think. So if Watford win, happy days. And if Hull win, it's not a good one for Luton, is it? So I think probably the worst possible result would be a draw. So I think we'll lose. I think we will draw. I think the season's petering out, like you say, Jacob, and with no Baah, Georgie's not going to be at 100%. We're not sure if Doumbia is going to be able to start the game. Yeah, if I'm giving a score prediction, I'm going to go with another 0-0, a similar game to the one against Plymouth.
I'm going to go with, I think we'll draw. I'm going to go with a 2-2. And VJ says, Doumbia's got the makings of a top player. The biggest positive out of our trip to Ashton Gate, Doumbia with his first goal in a Watford shirt. Thanks so much to everyone who watched, everyone who listens to our sort of review of yesterday, but more in the context of this season, because it is 40 games on the board. Watford are in 10th. They're on 53 points, 7 points off the playoffs with 6 games to go. Watford have won 15, drawn 8, lost 17. And I think converting some of those losses now, just looking at it into draws, is probably where we've come a little bit short. But we'll see how we get on in the last 6. Sam, thanks so much for joining me, mate. Plans this week? Anything going on?
Pleasure, mate. Nothing much, really. It's a bit of a quiet one. Obviously, Tuesday night, we got the game. I'm going to 3 games in the space of 7 days, because then I'm off to the Hawthorns on Saturday. And then this time next week, I will be at the Virtue Trophy final, watching Birmingham against Peterborough at Wembley. So, yeah, it should be an exciting one. See what I can expect against Birmingham next season.
Some Kipriano scouting, I've heard.
God, bring him to the odds.
We need them. Thanks so much, Sam. Thanks so much, everyone who watched. Please do leave a like on the video on the way out if you enjoyed. Comment down below your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Sorry, it's been a little bit of a while since we've done one of these, but we're back. And, well, to see out the rest of this championship season. Thanks so much, guys. Take care of yourselves. Have a great week. And up the audits. You want...